A lot of businesses, when it comes to their, strategy, this is often what happens. Oh, well, I need to do social media. I need to do, SEO. I need to do Google Ads, whatever it is. But there's not really kind of that overall goal and destination in mind. And so, what we have really focused on our career, while Bluefin Strategy's only been around for 6 years, Brandon and I have more than 30 years of experience. And really, this is the problem that we help solve with businesses is, discovering what those business goals really are and helping craft the digital strategy that drives to those goals. So I told you there would be a slide introducing us. So I am J.R. Hopwood. I am a CSU alum, '03 lifetime member. I bleed green and gold. I'm in Fort Collins quite often. So I went in '99 and I've been back every year since, and have been a season ticket holder of football for many years, as well as women's basketball. So love Fort Collins, love CSU, and definitely love the community. I love Colorado. In addition, I'm an avid outdoorsman. Fisherman, mostly skier, all of that stuff. But when it comes to work, I'm a data nerd. If the data doesn't prove it, then I don't want to do it. So my career really, for more than 16 years has been founded in what the data says and developing strategies to help businesses based on what that data actually tells us. Brandon?
Yeah, and I'm Brandon Hess. Recently moved back. Most of my career has been spent in Denver. I'm a father of two. Terrible snowboarder, as Jared will accord to. I'm too tall for it. I can't stand up on it and fall over all the time. In terms of my career, I'm more on the creative strategy side of things. So I've spent most of my time in the trenches, from advertising to display to copywriting, web design. So I think that's where me and Jared's strengths kind of balance between each other as we work through projects.
Cool. So as mentioned, Brandon and I have been in the industry, for a combined 30 years. A lot's changed since then. MySpace is no longer a thing, although I do miss the days of having Tom as a friend. But obviously, digital marketing is constantly changing as devices change. More ways to target people based on devices and actions and things that they do are more important than ever. And so why I think Brandon and I have been successful, not just in Bluefin Strategy, but just in our career in general, is we do have that kind of data mindset. We look at a business, at a holistic level, and we're evaluating the data, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, whether we're talking to people or just kind of reviewing analytics. We want to make sure that any kind of strategies that we recommend are actually the ones that are going to drive those qualified customers. And then ultimately, we want to be able to measure the results. Way too often have we seen in the past where we engage with a business and either they've, kind of done their own marketing or had another agency or whatever, and they're not able to track how that marketing or how that strategy is actually working. So I might be throwing a ton of money, at marketing, and maybe I'm getting a return, but is that return really coming from the marketing that I'm spending so much time on? So that, the analytics piece is really where we focus, whether it's reviewing the analytics or providing tagging strategies to make sure that we can actually track end to end whether our marketing strategies are actually leading to results. So Brandon is certainly more on the visual side than I am, but every once in a while I jot some things down on napkins that look halfway decent. And so that's how this was born. Brandon and I kind of whiteboarded out, the process that we have followed, somewhat unknowingly for 16, years each. And we said, it doesn't matter if it's a, automotive shop or GE appliances. the same process is applied from a digital strategy standpoint every single time. And so we wanted to create a process out of that, and to really make it easy and understandable. And so, where we kind of focus initially, and Brandon's gonna walk us through kind of our digital strategy audits that we typically do at the beginning. But really in that, what comes out of it is understanding what those business goals really are. I, I shamefully, I'm shocked at how many times we interact with a business who doesn't really know or can articulate what their website and business goals really are. Obviously, a business is, kind of typically in business to make money. So, there's that. But when it comes to the website and sort of what our digital strategy needs to be driving to, oftentimes, there's a lot of uncertainty. And so when we come in, we want to very much identify what those primary, secondary, tertiary goals are, and really make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're driving towards. And then once we have that, we can start to understand what the audience targets really need to be by developing personas. It doesn't matter what kind of business or not-for-profit or whatever, kind of organization you might be, there's always going to be certain, personas that you're going to try and target to bring into your organization. Whether that is, demographics, geographics, whatever it might be, we help businesses kind of understand what are those 3 to 5 top personas that we want to go after, and really kind of, define them specifically so that we really know a lot about them. And why that's important is then the next step is, where are they? While Facebook, might be great and Twitter might be great, and there's no shortage of tactics out there when it comes to digital marketing, is that really where your audience is? Just because a trade group is talking about, the latest social media craze, your audience might not be there. So throwing money at that is just kind of wasted money. What we really try and do is, from those personas, we say, here are where they are. We do the research and analysis to understand where are they looking to consume content and learn more about other businesses. And then once we understand those targets, we then move into the messaging piece, and what do we really want to say to them? And maybe there's a blanket statement that we can say, but sometimes you want to talk differently to those different personas. Whether it's, ages or demographics or geographics or whatever it might be. Some people, talk about things differently, or just are more receptive to different messaging. And so we break that down by persona. And then understanding, what are the tools that we really need to leverage. So, you'll notice that tools is like, halfway through this process already. And that's, because we need to do a lot of analysis and research before we understand what are the actual tools that we need for the job. Too often, we have heard that, oh, we got HubSpot, or, oh, we got MailChimp, or whatever it might be. And those are all both great tools, and there are numerous tools that are out there. But unless those tools are actually, kind of driving to what your strategy really is, then they're kind of useless. A hammer is a great tool, but if you have a bunch of screws, not going to really help you out all that much. And then from there, we move into user experience. So what is, kind of the reception that you are giving users once they arrive on your website or interact with your marketing? Making sure that it's very easy for them to, get what they want from you, and that they understand what you are trying to, message to them. And then budgeting. So, we haven't implemented anything yet. So, all these steps that we're talking about is really kind of developing that strategy. And so now that we understand, our individual personas, we understand where they are, we understand the tools that we're going to need. Now we get into budgeting, and we understand, kind of what is that threshold that you as an organization are able to actually spend on marketing. And where, based on that, is the most cost-effective means to market and reach your audience. So this is a huge step that is necessary to, really be optimizing your marketing spend. But obviously, there's going to be some, follow-up and evaluation to it. And then finally, as I mentioned, previously, we're super focused on analytics. So making sure that everything that we do is trackable. The final step before we implement anything is to actually, implement a tagging strategy that identifies, every piece of the marketing funnel, all the way from, A to Z. And then lastly, the whole thing starts over again. Maybe we bypass the business goals part, but we certainly want to constantly be evaluating our strategy. We do a lot of research and looking at the analytics to start, but that doesn't mean that it's always spot on. And in addition, personas change, different people change. And society changes. Obviously a digital marketing strategy that was implemented in 2019 probably had to change a little bit in 2020. So this is a constant loop, and that's why we decided to create a process about it, because we constantly want to follow this process ongoing. So one of the things that we typically see is, in that process where most businesses focus is the where, the what, and the tools to use. I need to market on Facebook because that's what the industry says that I should do. I need to be on Twitter. I need to do X, Y, Z. But before we even get there, we really need to be evaluating what those goals and personas really are. And then make sure that we have a user experience and that we're spending the right money and that we have everything trackable. To me, the things in blue are really the most important. The tactics are, kind of a dime a dozen these days. There's so many different ways for you to target your individual personas. That if you don't have that strategy and the things that are in blue figured out, then the things that are in black are really kind of not going to be driving to, what your ultimate goal really is. So that's why we, really kind of drive businesses to focus on the stuff in blue and then implement the stuff that's in black.
So with what JR went over, one thing that we always like to talk through is sort of how the industry works on our side. Now, we've worked with a lot of great agencies in the past, and this is by no means a generalization, but a lot of the times when you've worked with an agency, majority of the time their model is to drive margin. So when you look at working with a large agency especially, it comes down to the point that if you buy in the resource that you were hoping to work with might be a very senior person for the first month, first 6 months, but overall, over time, the driving force of the agency is to try to find that margin there, to try to get you into a mode where maybe in the first month or the first year, can they drive them into another team that maybe that margin's higher? And that's just from experience that we've worked in this industry for a while. Doesn't mean every agency is like that, but the same thing sometimes happens when you're working with a platform or a model. The goal there on the same end is to get you using that tool, get you to spend budget. This is more common if you're using Google Ads. They want you to set that budget, want you to get those ads running before you even have a strategy in place, because that's their goal in terms. And so that's, I think, where we come in terms of a strength is we sort of understand those goals and we try to find ourselves a way in the middle of that, because sometimes when you go to an agency, the priority is going to be pushing you towards a certain templated product that they have or a certain templated service that they have. And they assume, in a lot of times, that you already have a lot of this strategy put in place, that you've already had a lot of these discussions that JR just walked through, and that when you join with them, that the hope is to push you into one of those buckets that they have, one of those service or products that they push. So with that understood, that's sort of where we feel we are unique, because instead of a larger agency or a product that sort of sees you as just another user that they're waiting for budget to go into, it at Bluefin, it's just myself and JR. So we're very passionate about what we do. You know who you're going to work with, because there is myself and there's JR, and we're going to be on every call. We're going to be there throughout the process. It's similar to if you've worked with an agency before. It's not uncommon to have the person you start with not be the person you end with, especially in that first couple of years where you might be switching teams as they sort of find the right fit for you on the certain segments within their own agency. They may have a team that's sort of implementation, or they might have a team that is sort of onboarding, and then that eventually pushes you to more of the maintenance team, where it's maybe they have different terminologies for it, but it's the team that now, once you're over that hump of joining that agency and getting past the initial meetings, this is the team now that you're going to work with. And that team can go through a lot of flux. So I think that's one big thing that we found that in working with clients that is unique, is that you're always working with the two of us. We have that knowledge that we start with, and that continues to evolve as we work on your project with you. As JR has mentioned, we have a combined 30 years of experience in the industry, especially on the agency side. So we bring a lot of that to bear. You're not getting someone that is similar with when we worked in the agency. You might be working with someone that's just come out into the agency world that's running a lot of your tools, a lot of your programs, a lot of your campaigns. And it's always going to be someone on our side that's had some experience that you're not paying for. As I illustrated in the last one, you're getting what you expect. And then also, I think a big thing that we find is unique is that we're very transparent. If you've worked with other agencies or tools sometimes, and not all, but some, like to sort of hide things behind the mirrors, hide things behind the curtain, and not explore and show you how, I guess, the sausage gets made. And that's what we like to do, is we like to show you and our clients how we came about these decisions, what tools we're using, teach you how to do it yourself, and sort of empower our teams to not feel like they're dependent on us for things that are more tactical. What we feel is our strength is our strategy, not the fact that we know how to use Google Analytics, or that we know how to log into Google Ads or use certain tools like SEMrush to do analysis. We want to open that up to our clients and really give them that education, if they wanted to know how to go about those processes themselves and how to learn from that. That said, one thing that JR brought up is one of the big things that we like to do with early clients is do what's called a strategy audit. And to kind of give an example of what this is, a lot of agencies, and this is a majority of them that you work with, may just take you on at the proposal development, try to get a sense of your goals for the project overall, and then not all, but some will move straight into sort of the implementation of those tactics that they brought up through the proposal. Well, now what this assumes a lot of times is that your agency or that your organization has had those discussions that JR just walked through, where you already know what your goals are, that you already understand all the messaging and the personas that you need to put in place. And because a lot of times these agencies will have sort of a templated run that we'll put through, that they know that, oh, we always like to work with this channel, this type of persona layout, this type of voice, this type of budgeting, things like that will always sort of be templated at those places. And if it's not directed in that proposal element, you're going to start right into tactics. And what we've seen from a lot of our clients is that that discussion around strategy audit and discovering those goals happens as the tactics are running. You start to run into those meetings that might happen of, you have a discussion where they're telling you that the campaign is going great, but on your side, you're not seeing the results you were expecting. And that's where those strategy audits start to happen, is in between, during status calls, emails, discussions around performance, where maybe you feel misaligned with the agency or service that you're using. And it always comes back. And I think that's something that we always like to push, is that the strategy audit happens one way or the other, whether it's happening while you're spending money on a campaign and while you're having to either pause or have some of that discomfort, or you do it early on to ensure that you have this very direct map to either hand yourself, hand your agency, or just sit on it. And I think that's something that we've seen too, is that when we do these audits, we produce them in a way that you don't have to work with us. It's something that you get to keep. When we discover all that information that JR walked through, we give it to you to take it and run with another agency if you want. And commonly, we will work with that agency for you to help with that. And then some teams will take that and then hand it over to their internal teams to run with as well. And then not a huge amount, but some will just take it and then they just hold on to it until they're ready to take that next step, until they're ready to go to an agency. Because we do work with a lot of smaller and medium-sized businesses where maybe they're getting ahead of things right now and preparing for the eventual likelihood that they will be doing more digital strategy. So that's sort of how the flow is. And the one big thing I always want to reinforce is that this usually happens in one way or the other. So we like to put it at the front. That way, all of your advertising, your digital strategy is built on experience and education and analytics instead of being built as the plane flies. I think that's an important delineation for what we do. So one big thing with our audits too is that we always do this personalized, because we know from experience that it's not always one size fits all. We've been on that end of things where you try to sort of fit a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't always work well. So when we look at strategy audits, we try to take it from a very customized, personalized level where we look at, we have those discussions with you. We're not coming in with a template we're trying to fit you in, but we're having those discussions, editing things down to be exactly fit to your company and your company's needs. And we also define a very clear direction. This isn't just a canned report that you get out of a tool that you pay a monthly fee for. These are clear directives that you can now work with that tell you exactly what the budget should be, exactly what you should focus on, what you should not focus on, messaging, things that you could actually take in and have very actionable work with. And then from there, we let our clients always decide on how much help they want or need. We don't try to push them into a retainer that might not be the right fit for them. We're really trying to be very much a partner with our clients versus trying to fit them into sort of a product on the top side. That said, what is in a strategy audit? So JR sort of walked through our process. What the output usually is, and this is very much an example, but we try to get sort of a high level on how to optimize your spend around audience personas. What's your budget optimization? What should that look like when you start? What should that look like as it improves? We discuss a lot of your potential audiences and reveal things that maybe you haven't been targeting, or maybe we reveal potential audiences that you should avoid. That sometimes doesn't get looked at enough, but maybe you've been spending a lot of money trying to go after a certain audience that just isn't biting yet. And we try to reveal those things too in terms of efficiency. We review site budget, behavior. We map out how to reach those audiences too. We don't just tell you who those audiences are, but we give you strategies on how to reach them, how to optimize on them, and then also how to eliminate ineffective tactics. And then we go into more and more things around structural audits. So not only marketing, messaging, and audience persona building, but we also look at your site, your website, and see if there's structural needs to improve your SEO. And we give you, again, actionable recommendations on how to uncover those opportunities and how to address them. We look at your user experience and try to give you feedback if we see there is obstacles in users being able to give you the information you want or purchase the product that you want them to purchase on your site. We go through that and we identify those, and then we also again give you actionable results on how to address those, how to whether it's wireframes or walking through with your development team. We're more than happy to walk through that and give our recommendations on that as well. The goal, again, back to what JR had mentioned, is that we're trying to pull this all back to the goals we identified. So if your site's goal is to sell products, but it's really hard to find how to buy those products, and that sounds obvious, we go through a lot of that and how to optimize that funnel so we make it as painless as possible for your customer, but also that you're getting everything you need out of it. Because that's usually the balance, is you want to get enough information that you need to have that goal be effective, but also not to be overwhelming so that the client or the customer doesn't want to have to go through it. Then after that, we work on giving you recommendations on how to track effectiveness. Now, not only are you running campaigns and you've updated your site, but we're also telling you how to come back and see how you can improve upon that, because it's not a one and done thing with strategy. We always realize that once you get things to a good level, now you're starting again to optimize on top of that. So you can always have that iterative performance improvements from your campaigns, from your website, and from your marketing. So we identify needs that ongoing, but this strategy audit might happen several times, sometimes over the course of a client's life, as they have a big redesign, or if they launch a new product, or if they purchase a new franchise, things like that. There's always a reason sometimes to come back and redo this and discuss new goals that may have come up in the last couple of years. So with that said, any questions for us? I know we went over a lot. We were trying to make sure we left some time for questions. So if there wasn't anything that we covered enough, JR and myself are happy to discuss or answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon and JR. We actually do have quite a few questions, so we'll kind of dive into those. So question one, this is from Carl. Carl, I might have you expand on this a little bit, is to what degree do you incorporate offline marketing? Carl, do you want to give clarification on that at all?
Yeah, it's, you focused a lot on the digital marketing. I appreciate that. But, often a lot of us will have both an online and an offline component to our marketing. And so I wasn't sure how much you incorporate both of those into what you're doing.
I mean, I would say from the tracking standpoint is probably where we use that the most. I mean, obviously, a lot of things out of the persona evaluation will determine, hey, there's a lot more offline stuff that needs to happen. We tend to focus more on the digital side and sort of how we can then track that offline piece back to an online conversion. So it's there. We certainly have some strategy recommendations around what we've seen in the past work, but certainly our focus is more around the digital side.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome, thanks, Carl. So this is a great question from Lindy. This is something that our Red Carpet ambassadors kind of always want to know is who is your best customer and how can the Red Carpet Ambassador Group help you as a business?
Yeah, so I'd say our best customers are the smaller to medium-sized businesses that have a very small marketing team. As Brandon said, before, we really, want to be part of the team. We don't want to be an agency. We've been in the agency world for a really long time. And what we've found work the best is when we're more as part of a team, and who typically needs that is the smaller to medium-sized businesses where maybe it's a one-person marketing show, or maybe they don't even have anyone who is kind of dedicated to marketing. That is typically where we thrive. And I would say when it comes to verticals, it really runs the gamut. We have e-commerce clients, but we also have banking institutions, even have a couple of not-for-profits as well. So it's really more about who needs the digital marketing help and a business where we can kind of be more part of the team, and then turning that into sort of how you all can help is really just kind of identifying, anyone who may need help in the digital marketing space, whether they are, not getting the results that they want out of their current marketing, whether they're spending too much, out of their current marketing, or whether they're having issues, kind of driving conversions and being able to track those conversions. That's really kind of who we're looking to work with is those people that really need help in the digital realm, and need somebody to kind of be more of a partner to them, and kind of guide them along the optimization journey.
Yeah, we find a lot of pride. A lot of our pride comes from like helping those smaller businesses see results from that. I think that's where we find our enjoyment is making sure that if we can find a client that is really needing help with that. I think that's where our passion lies, is helping those clients get to that point, because we get very invested just to being a smaller agency. I think that's a big portion of what we like to work with.
Awesome, thanks, Lindy, and thanks for the answer, guys. Question from Kimberly is how long does the audit portion typically take?
So typically a couple of weeks, give or take. We try and wrap everything up, in at least within 3 or 4 weeks. It really kind of depends on the size of the business, and sort of a large company like a GE. Obviously that's going to take maybe more like 5 or 6 weeks, because there's just a lot of moving parts. But we typically find with the businesses that we work with the smaller medium-sized businesses, that within 3 or 4 weeks, we certainly have a handle on what the business is really trying to achieve, where the struggles and issues are, kind of where the optimizations can happen in the digital marketing funnel, and sort of what those recommendations would be. So 3 to 4 weeks is kind of a good ballpark.
Perfect, thank you. So kind of a two-parter from Nate is, do you work with social media influencers? And can we get some of your thoughts on dollars spent on social media marketing, placed ads, kind of in that realm?
Brandon, you want to handle this?
Yeah, I think in terms of spend, I think that one's an easier one. A lot of times what we want to do on the spend side, and this is part of the audit, is we want to identify, it's hard to know if you're spending for branding, there's a different spend than what you recommend than if you're wanting a direct amount of conversions to happen off that spend. So we see a lot of success on the social spend side. It just depends on what the goals are for that spend, because you can have a lot of different terms of success, because we've had clients that spend a lot of money just to have brand awareness on social, just to make sure that they're always owning a really high percentage of all the impressions that are happening. But we also have small businesses that they have a very distinct cost per action that they want, and that has to be hit. So their budget is very guarded, and that social spend sometimes can blow out very quickly, because depending on the channel and the messaging, people may not be as apt to click on it. So I think that's a big part of our strategy, that we always want to identify that goal so we can give you those better recommendations. But in terms of the social influencers, no, I don't think we haven't had a lot of our experience on the influencer side. We can certainly craft strategies, but we don't have relationships, or we don't have the buying power to kind of make relationships with them. But we can give you strategies and how to deal with that tactic of if you're using influencers. A lot of those things have a very resonant case built off of old tactics built on affiliates and advertorials and things like that you may have used on the offline side of things. There's similar tactics that you use on that as well that we like to give strategies on. But as far as if we work directly with them, no.
Yeah, and if you're bored for an hour and a half and looking to get into the influencer realm, I would recommend, if you have HBO, to watch the documentary "Fake Famous" that just came out. It is very enlightening. Influencer marketing is very, very big. Obviously, it's been going around for years. I mean, the Larry Bird, Michael Jordan stuff, right? I mean, influencer marketing has just kind of changed, but be very cautious in terms of the amount of followers and sort of what influencer reach really means for that person. Because there is a lot of bot traffic and a lot of kind of fake followers that inflate those numbers when you think that somebody might be very influential, but maybe they're not as influential as you might think. So, anyways, it's a good documentary, "Fake Famous" on HBO.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point too. We always like to recommend is you're more or less in a lot of these ways hiring a spokesperson. So you want to do your due diligence on a lot of this influencer marketing. There's a lot of tools out there that can allow you to just have very quick access to them, and sometimes it's a little dangerous, because if you, to JR's point, there are ways to fake your influence, and making sure that you're doing your due diligence to make sure that you're okay with the person that you're picking to be advertising for you, because you also inherit all the things that come along with that. I'm sure everyone's seen sort of those crash and burn influencers that go from very high and then have something happen, that there's also that relationship that you built with them that you could actually suffer from that. So we always like to give people that warning too. Some of the JRs is always making sure that you're doing due diligence on that side of things.
Awesome, thanks. Another question from Carl. What do you do differently for a nonprofit?
Get paid less. No, I would love, I'm actually, the reason I'm in Aspen and why I left Fort Collins is actually helping out a foundation up here. I mean, that's certainly a huge passion of mine. I would say that what I have found when working with not-for-profits is that the focus in those first two buckets, or I guess maybe the first three buckets, are really where we spend the most time, really understanding what as a not-for-profit we're trying to do. Are we just trying to gain awareness? Are we actually trying to drive donations? Who is our target, right? When it comes to a not-for-profit, there's going to be a mission of what the not-for-profit does, but then there's also going to be this aspect of, we need to sustain ourselves by getting donations. So there's certainly a lot of, variations when it comes to persona development, when it comes to a not-for-profit, and then, really focusing on, based on those personas, what are those messages that are going to resonate the most. So, I would say that, there's less paid media typically when it comes for a not-for-profit. So we typically are spending more of our time in, kind of the creative side more than anything of, really kind of identifying and defining those personas and really, articulating what that messaging really is, more than we would with a for-profit business.
Yeah, thanks. You've really got me thinking this morning, because I have a meeting with a PR team for a nonprofit this afternoon, and some of this stuff, concepts are very applicable. And a lot of us here are leading or participating in nonprofits. So it's a pretty common thing for red carpet members to be doing.
Yeah, honestly, Brandon and I have talked many times that, I would love to just do not-for-profit work. It's, there's so much help, that is necessary. And so one of the strategies that we've kind of talked about that, we're going to try and do in 2021 and hopefully do even more in 2022 is, work a lot more with not-for-profits. So, if you do have any not-for-profits that are struggling in these areas, we'd certainly love to talk with them and, can want to work with them in any way possible.
So just contact you through the website?
Yeah, well, I would assume Chad will send out our information. We also provided our email addresses in the chat, so you can reach out to us directly. But if for some reason you lose those, yeah, you can just contact us via the website as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can make that connection as well. So Carl, you and Jay are correct. Anyone can reach out to me and I can make that connection. So we have about 2 minutes left. I'm not seeing any other questions. However, I do kind of have a question for the two of you. Is I field a lot of calls at the chamber, and I try to do a lot of chamber member outreach and try to see what our members want. And I do run into quite a bit of questions about this transition into this digital space, because that's where we've been since COVID. And I hear questions like, what is SEO? What is geo-tracking? What is boosting ads? How do I pull the analytics on my website? Can you kind of dumb down kind of those industry words for us? I know some of us know what those mean, but some of us might not actually have a true understanding of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I wonder, Chad, if it would be beneficial to, as you get those calls, just reach out to us and we can, kind of put together a really quick, newsletter and put it into the weekly, send out. I wonder if that would be beneficial, because they're gonna change and there's gonna be new ones every week, because that's just the nature of digital marketing.
Yeah, those buzzwords. Sure. Yeah, no, I'll start. I can always connect up with you and maybe get a cheat sheet on it. So
Sure.
Cool. All right, so we have about 1 minute left. So if I'm not seeing any other questions, so really there is only one thing left to do, guys. Are we on gallery view? Can we see all of our pretty faces?
Yep.
All right. Let me see them red carpet spirit fingers, guys. Let's go ahead and give Bluefin Strategy a big
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very good this morning.
Oh, good. Thank you. I appreciate y'all allowing us to have some time.
Awesome, guys. Well, everybody have a great rest of your day. Again, if you want to connect with JR or Brandon, please just reach out to me. I will just plan on sending you guys a Friday email, and we will do it all again next week. So everybody have a fantastic weekend.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
bye,
you.
guys.
See ya.
Take care.
Pat, are we not doing announcements anymore?
Not when we don't have time. So I got to end this promptly at 10, but send me any announcement. It'll go out on Friday.
Okay.